This video is going to go over about passing a two-dimensional array into a function in C++. So basically, if you remember with regular variables, when you pass a regular variable into a function, you're basically passing in a copy of that. Unless you put an ampersand with it, you're telling the system, hey, here's this value, save it off, and use it for your function. When you're passing an array, what you're doing, though, is not just passing the values of it, you're passing the actual address location, and so you're passing it by reference, and so then the function can point back to the original one. So when we did it when we passed in a single dimensional array, right, we were able to just pass it in, and if you remember right, we only used you used brackets, and you didn't have to have a number in it. So, and then when you called it, you just called it, and you would just send it the name of the array without any square brackets, because that was saying, here's the address of the array that I care about that we're sending. So with doing a two-dimensional array, it's similar, but we need to tell it how many columns it has, because it doesn't know how many columns it has, so that needs to know how many spaces, right? So this is like one column, and so then if you have more than one column, you need to tell it, oh, now I have more than one column. So like, right? So the reason why the first one is blank is that's how many rows you have, and the calls is how many columns you have. But you call it the exact same way you called the one-dimensional array, where you just pass it in with the address and nothing else. So let's go to CLion and show how that works. Basically, we want to take this for loop that we had, right? And I'm just going to cut it from here, and we're going to come up and create a function for it. So void print array. And we're going to paste our data here. And so now we just need to pass in our array, which I'm going to call it something different, standard, and it's a string still, but I'm just going to call it my array, or we'll call it print array. And the reason why I'm calling it something different is just because I like to point out that you should probably do this, is have the functions have different names, because then it lets you like follow things and go, okay, now this print array is only updated and changed in this one area, right? And that's important to understand. So now we have this print array, and you can see Unreal's not happy with me because, you know, it has a little squiggly line under the first one. And it's because, and if we look at the code for it, it's going to say, you know, array has an incomplete element type, string with the square brackets, aka basic string character. So it's not happy because it doesn't know how many spaces it has. So we know this needs to be a 3. The 3 is from how many columns that it has, right? So if I had actually changed it to a 2 before, where like I should have, because I only have 2 things that I'm collecting, the first name and the last name, then I would put a 2 here. And so C++ uses the columns, how many columns you have, and the data type to calculate where in memory that the next row is going to start. So because of that, that's why that's the only thing it needs. It doesn't need the rows, it just needs the columns, because it uses the columns and the data type to calculate where the next row is going to be. So now that we got the function declared, I always still like to, you know, just compile before I make any other changes. It's like when I make one big change, I like to compile, make sure I didn't screw anything else up. And then I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to actually do the print, right? So I'm going to call it, so print array, and we're just passing it the full name, if I can type. You'll notice, right, I didn't have to put any location, I didn't have to put any square brackets on what I'm passing. I'm just passing the actual variable name. And when I compile it, it should now output, and it looks exactly the same as before. Now, if I wanted to print this actually nice, what I would do, because, right, you usually want first and last name on the same line. So this is what I would normally do just to make things pretty. And I know I'm a little bit of a stickler for this, but I do think making stuff legible and easy to read is highly important for anything that you're going to be doing. So, right, so because, right, the whole point of this isn't just to make a project, it's to make a usable project, right, or usable product. So, right, so this makes much more sense and much easier to read, saying Jennifer Smith, Tom Jones, Sue Johnson. And so always think about that when you're doing stuff, is what does it look like? Is a reader going to be able to easily read what the output's going to be? So I hope that helped, and I will see you in the next video.